Well, I'm not going to stop you. Not going to stop you.
Karen, I absolutely love that you sent out postcards. I thought that was so good.
Oh, yes. That was a kind of a blast from the past.
I know.
But it was nice.
It was, yeah.
It's old fashioned, but the publisher offered to design them for me. And I said, hey, if you guys design them, I'll print them and mail them. And I just, we all get so much email these days that I thought, well, it can't hurt. And I can actually pretend that they are the Christmas cards that I never had time to send out this year.
Right. They were great.
Happy New Year. Buy my
I
book.
think
They
Tracy,
say
we need to
snail
talk
mail
to
is back.
Kensington about this.
There you go. Hi, Kath.
Hi, Kathy.
Hey.
Hi, Kathy. I can't see you yet because I'm on a...
I walked in from work and I got right into my PJs, so I'm
That's great.
Oh, hi, Kathy. Turn on the camera, Kathy.
No way.
Oh, come on.
No?
No, sorry.
I'm not gonna do it.
They must be some really sexy pajamas, Kathy.
Yeah. Yeah, you sure you don't want to show those off?
No.
Hey, Janet.
Hi, Janet.
Hi, Janet.
I was expecting Kathy's really sexy pajamas.
Oh, see, there's two Kathys.
Yeah, Kathy Mila.
There's Kathy Mila and Kathy McDonald.
Hey,
Yeah.
Janet.
Hi.
Hi, Janet. I can't see you yet because I can only see 9 people, but it'll revolve, I think.
Okay.
So I have to ask the lawyer in the group if I messed anything up legal wise.
I didn't see anything yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't finished the book entirely yet.
Okay.
It's a very good book.
I'm just
The
flattered
ending
that you guys
the best
got
part.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so far it's on point. I love it.
I did a lot of research. I did my best, but I did not have. Well, wait a minute. I had our friend Di, who's also an attorney. She was an early beta reader, but I had a lot of work to do after she looked at it. So it's very possible that I got something wrong after she read it. So
It was such a good book.
anyway.
Such a good book, Karen.
Thank you.
And it
Incredible
just,
story.
yeah. I mean, and I'm with Donna. I love how it ended. You really wrapped it up beautifully.
Oh,
Thank
The ending
you.
was
I
good.
got it today, so I'm
Can I-
waiting for
Can
Joanne
I say
to send
something
it.
about the ending?
Well, no,
Yeah.
no, don't talk about. I haven't read the whole thing yet.
No, no.
Oh, no.
I haven't even
Oh, yeah.
gotten
Oh,
anything.
No
I have-
spoilers.
I have begun it, but I haven't finished it. But I love your voice in it, Karen.
Thank you.
I just I find myself being able to be there, and then when I put it's like a movie on pause, which is really cool. That's one of my favorite ways to read.
Oh.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Marcia.
Hi,
Hi.
Joanne.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Hello.
Marcia.
Hey,
Marcia.
Marcia.
Hey, lovely faces. Some I haven't seen in a while. It's so good to see you. Happy New Year, everyone.
happy New
Oh,
Year to you.
Marcia, by the way, Marcia,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to send out a newsletter soon. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Oh, Thank you. Yes, I did see your email, but my brain is like a sieve these
That's
days.
okay.
It just kind of disappears. Thank you. I will work
Okay.
on it, I promise, this weekend.
Poor Lisa had to hound me for my columns. She was,
Every month.
She's doing the
Yeah,
same with me, so
sorry.
I appreciate it because I have so much going on. It's crazy.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here for half an hour, so I'm not being rude. I just have some place to be after 8. But I'm here for half an hour.
I hope you have a hot date.
Well, sort of. Don't know how hot it is, but we'll see.
Well, I'm just happy. I'm just happy to see you all. And I don't think I've ever talked to this many people barefoot, This is
Actually,
a good thing
Donna, I
about
have
it,
to wave.
and when the plague is not here, you actually have to go places and you have to wear shoes, and so there's benefits to the plague, right?
Are you wearing pants?
I am wearing pants. Yeah, I just want to make that clear.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Are they matching pants or are they?
Pajama pants.
I'm wearing beat up blue jeans.
And flip-flops, right?
No shoes at all. No shoes at all. I look civilized from the waist up and like a bum from the waist down.
And she has her wine.
I do have my wine. I
There
got
you
some
go.
Prosecco. So yeah, so this is, as many of you know, this is a very different book, type of book for me to write. I had never written a historical novel before, and I never even thought about writing a historical novel. And I took a break from writing for a couple years, and I was wanting to get back to it. I was sort of walking around feeling like I didn't have an arm. I was missing like one arm or something. And a friend, a fellow author, said, hey, there's this really cool idea that I came across. You should think about it. I kind of looked at him. Okay. And he said I should listen to this podcast on NPR, the Hidden Brain podcast. And it was about the Buck family, the 3 generations, and what happened to Carrie Buck. And okay, my friend Sandra is saying that she's on the launch, but I don't know. Hi, Sandra, if you're here.
She's here and she's in the waiting room. I'm letting her in now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm getting the messages up top. So I said, okay, I'll listen to the podcast, whatever. And I heard Carrie's voice, and I heard just the tremendous series of injustices that were done to her. And I got madder and madder. And I literally jumped off the treadmill because I was exercising in those days. And I jumped off the treadmill and I ran to my laptop and I flipped it open and I started writing chapter 1. It was her voice that triggered it. And I can't explain this, because anyone who has ever heard me give a workshop or give advice, to beginning writers has heard me say, you need an outline, you need a synopsis. You can't just flip open your laptop and type chapter 1. Well, there I was doing that. And within 11 days, I had 3 chapters and a synopsis, which is like a blueprint for the whole book. And I had a new agent, and it was absolutely surreal and bizarre. And I don't know, I can't explain it to this day, but I almost felt like the story was being channeled through me. And I know how cheesy that sounds, but that's how it felt. I just felt so strongly that I was getting a message from somewhere that I had to write this book. So we sent it out as a partial, which is 3 chapters and a synopsis, and got some early feedback that this was, it's about eugenics, which is, forced sterilization of citizens for various reasons. They were not deemed fit to procreate. And we got some early feedback that eugenics was way too complicated a subject for me to write a book in this simple a voice. And I, normally I'm a very practical soul, and I take the advice of successful high profile editors. But in this case, again, I had this gut instinct that said, nope, you're going to tell it the way it happened to Carrie Buck. You're going to tell the story as she experienced it. This 16-year-old girl with a 6th grade education who was not pregnant by choice and was sent to an institution and her baby taken away. And then because there were 3 generations involved, the doctor and the lawyer at the Virginia colony for the epileptic and feeble-minded decided that this was the perfect test case for them to take to court so that they could enact a statute so that the doctor could sterilize people at will. And that is what they did. They misrepresented all of their mental health levels. There's no way to tell that a 6-month-old baby is, well, I mean, I'm sure there are ways today, but in
necessarily
1924, it was doubtful. So what they said was, oh, well, the baby doesn't seem quite right. And, the mother is a degenerate and she's immoral. And her mother before her is degenerate and immoral. Well, what happened was the father either disappeared or died. And the mother had 3 children and no means of making a living except for, what we kind of refer to as the old-fashioned way. And so it was sort of a tragic situation, and bad went to worse. So as I read more about it, I got angrier and more outraged, and I had to write this story. And I won't say anything about the ending because I don't want to do spoilers for anyone, but that's how it came to be.
I thought that you did a wonderful job with the voice. Like it doesn't come off as simple at all. Like you
Thank you.
are so talented that you were able to really bring her story in awe.
Thank you. I mean, it was hearing her voice. It was doing some research on 1920s language, which was really fun. And it was also taking a trip back in time to my great grandmother, who, grew up and tended a farm in Missouri. And so it was kind of a trip back in time, remembering, sort of the cadence of her language and the vocabulary and the kind of the attitude, because my mom was an academic, she spoke 5 languages and so it was challenging, but it's one of the coolest writing experiences I've ever had, because I feel like writing is in a sense like acting, just through words on the page instead of on stage. So
I think you did an incredible job with the romance. I mean, obviously you're going to do that because you are such a prolific romance writer. But for me, I mean, it's hard to say a favorite part of the book because they're so different. A romance is a kind of happy thing and everything else that happens is tragic. But that is where, I mean, I think you were just shining in that book. And it was a beautiful romance.
Thank you.
I
wanted her to, she was so alone, and I wanted her to gradually find support in unexpected places, which I think we often do. Sometimes when we're, life is throws you curveballs, and people move in and out our lives for a reason, and it's sometimes you're so grateful for the people in your life, as I'm grateful for you all just, to be here this evening. But I wanted to slowly give her friends, even though she wasn't used to them and wasn't really quite prepared for them.
So Karen, do you see any possibility of a jump off book? Because there's so many interesting characters in that story that lived in the home for the feeble-minded. I mean, I wanted to know, in more depth, what happened to even some of the cameo characters that, popped in. I was just really curious if there's a possibility of that happening.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I, when I initially talked to my new agent about it, I said, there are 3 stories here. There are 3 books here. He said, nope, there's 1 book. And I said, no, really, there's 3. there's the mother, there's the daughter, and there's the baby. He said, no, there's 1 book here. But now, I actually hadn't thought about that, because I'm actually fleshing out a different book set in the 1920s in Washington, D.C. But one of the first rules of staying afloat in publishing is to be flexible. So I don't rule it out. I don't rule it out.
What was the hardest part about writing this book?
What was
the hardest part about writing the book?
Okay, so this is a funny one. The hardest part about writing this book was there's a chapter where there's a board meeting, and they're discussing eugenics and the science behind eugenics and the philosophy behind eugenics, and where it all started with, Charles Darwin's cousin, and several different families that were studied. And it's so convoluted and vast. And it goes back to Gregor Mendel and pea plants, these genetic experiments. And so I was trying to present all that information in 1 chapter that the reader would not just, go into a coma from boredom or just run screaming from the book. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And in fact, it took my editor, it took 2 editors to iron out and just cut it to the bone, to where, they seem like they are a bunch of pompous gentlemen, for lack of a better word. But some of the research comes across without, I hope, being too heavy or technical or boring.
You did a good job on that.
Karen?
Yeah.
I'm curious as to how closely you followed Carrie's story and where you veered off into really fictionalizing.
So all the legal components of the story are they follow Carrie Buck's story. All of the friendships, the intimate characters, like Glory, Mother Jenkins, Clarence, the 2 girls, Izzy, those are entirely fictional characters. Ruby, entirely fictional. But the bare bones of the story is definitely Carrie Buck's, and the colony, the Virginia colony for evil-minded, sorry, for epileptics and feeble-minded is still a real place today. It's been turned into something else. I think some kind of, school for the deaf, something along those lines. But it was a real place, a terrifying place in a lot of ways. Let's see, what else did I do? I did take some liberties with timelines. Bonnie is modeled on Doris Buck, who was Carrie's younger sister. And for purposes of the plot, ramping up the action and the emotion, I had Bonnie sterilized first, when in real life she was actually sterilized after Carrie was. And the really tragic thing about that is that most of the time the patients were not told what was being done to them. They were told, oh, you need your appendix out, or you have an infection and we need to remove something. So for the purposes of the plot, I had Doc Price tell Ruth Ann, we are going to sterilize you, because I needed her to push back. When you're writing a novel, you need your protagonist to have what's called agency. They need to, that character needs to really want something badly or really not want something badly, and take steps, active steps towards her goals. And in real life, Carrie Buck trusted her people, to take care of her and to make the right decisions for her. And that made me angriest of all. So she fights back in a lot of ways in the book. Because, I think a lot of the time fiction is, real life as it should be, and not as it is. So yeah, I took some liberties. And again, I don't want to talk about the ending because of spoilers, but I changed things.
So there are, my understanding is that there's still some states that have this this law on the books. Do you know which states those are?
So the issue is really that it's still on the books, with the Supreme Court. So and Nicole, as an attorney, maybe you can talk a little bit more about that, because I find it outrageous that it's still on the books, but I also don't know how you overturn a Supreme Court case. So I don't think it's on many, if any, state books anymore. Like Virginia, they overturned it in 1974, I believe. But in California, it may still be on the books because they did sterilizations in California prisons as late as 2010. Wow. So yeah, it's kind of unbelievable to me. I'd love to find a way to get it overturned. But
it's kind of like, I think, how this case started. You have to find the test case that the Supreme Court would take.
Yeah. And it's my understanding that the Supreme Court doesn't challenge evidence that was brought beforehand. They take the evidence as it's been presented from the lower courts. And that was the big problem in this case, Beck versus Bell, because they manipulated and lied in some cases, about the evidence. And her attorney, because he was a member of the colony board, really wasn't on her side. So he deliberately lost. He made very little effort to win the cases, and then would appeal. They would go to the next, higher court, and he would do the same thing and then appeal again. So.
Right, so they have evidence.
The book. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Me. So I posted about the book on that Historical Fiction Book Lovers post on the Facebook page. You're welcome. And one of the people commented back, because I said it's hard to believe that this is still going on today, that this case is still considered legit, it's a Supreme Court case. And she was from Germany. And she said that she has a child who's has Down syndrome, and it is still a policy in Germany to do this. However, you have to get the consent of the mentally, whatever, what, I don't know what term they use over there, but the person who in question, you have to get their consent. So it's still, I mean, the whole idea, well, Germany, it's not a big surprise that eugenics is still being considered something to do. But I thought that was horrible. I mean, just.
Well, and you know, that's another another thing that upset me a lot was that Buck versus Bell was the research behind Buck versus Bell. A lot of it was compiled by a guy named Harry S. Laughlin. And Laughlin was so proud of his research and recommended sterilizing 15 million people in the US that he shared his research with Nazi scientists. And so not only were, 77 odd thousand people sterilized in the US, but under the Third Reich, another 375,000 people were sterilized. And then Buck versus Bell was used as, case law, US case law in the defense of, some of these Nazis on trial at Nuremberg. And so they're just the repercussions of what happened in Buck versus Bell are just, they're much larger than, just one family. It's just, I think it outraged me, for a number of personal reasons too. So, which a lot of you know about. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. But so
I worked for 8 years in Ohio at what is called a sheltered workshop. It was an adult facility for the disabled. And we had a married couple there who had a young child, and the social services and everybody there worked very hard to support them so they could raise their child on their own. And the little boy, I was in the school program, and he was in the school program as an infant because he was failure to thrive. But he began receiving therapies at the age of 6 months in an effort to make sure he reached as full potential as was possible.
that's ideal.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, just in the 1920s, they truly believed that they could, that traits, not only disease, but traits like dishonesty or
Criminality
or criminality, immorality could be passed along hereditarily. And we sort of laugh at that now, but there was a huge debate back then. Nature versus nurture still goes on today. Sure. But they truly believed, like mother like daughter. If the mother is a degenerate, the daughter will be too. And it's crazy, human beings are not pea plants. But it was 1924 when this started, 1927 when it was passed. So
my mother's younger sister, who was 13 months younger than my mother, I think she didn't have a syndrome or anything like that, but I think there was probably some birth trauma from a home birth. And, in my family, we had heard stories that even when you saw them as children, being my mother was only a year older than her sister, you could see there was a difference between them. And my aunt was born in 1925, so it was right during this time period. And they sent her to first grade, and she was there one day. And the school, like truant officer and all, brought my aunt home and told my grandparents to keep her home. And then when she was around 17 or 18, this was in Ohio, and there was sort of a home for the feeble-minded, in Ohio. It was down in Columbus, and my grandmother wanted Mary to go there. So she was sent there, and my mother diligently wrote letters to her, hoping that people were reading them to her and all. And my mother was, I think, 17 or 18 at the time. And she made her father one weekend drive her down there. And when she saw the conditions, she packed her sister's bags, loaded her sister in the car, and brought her home. And this was a teenage girl. And actually, my mother took care of her sister until she died. And she was in her 60s.
Do you all remember in the 60s the deplorable conditions Geraldo Rivera displayed or discovered in New York City with children with Down syndrome and birth defects, that the families were told they should put them in homes for proper care? And it was, as you just said, when your mother went to see her sister, absolutely deplorable. I can't remember the name. There was a name to it. And it was Geraldo Rivera in the 60s. I remember this. That revealed these children in these tenements with rats and no food and feces. It was the most disgusting, deplorable conditions. 1960s. And people were told to, if you had a kid with Down syndrome or birth trauma, to give it up. But thank God today, people take these wonderful children home and raise them.
When I was first out of nursing school, let's see, what year was that? So let me think. It was in the 70s. 75, I graduated. I think in 76 or 77, I worked at, it's now called Ann Stork Center here in Broward County, but at the time.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Before it became Ann Stork Center, it was a pediatric care center which housed 50 plus children who were, and I worked there for about 9 months. And some of them were mentally challenged, some of them were physically challenged, and it really was a sad place. And we had one young girl who was a Down syndrome, and she was just delightful and smart. You know, she really was more of a high functioning, and she was there because her family was told to institutionalize her. Yep. And it really was kind of a sad thing because she was like about 6, 7 years old, just really, pretty bright for Down syndrome. Just a very sad place. That's why I didn't work there for very long. It was not a great place.
Yeah. When Public Law 94-142 passed in 1976, and the schools were forced by the federal government to open up programs for children of all disabilities, literally people unlocked their attics.
Oh my.
That is truly what happened.
Wow.
We were seeing kids that no one even knew they had existed.
Wow.
That's
so that was 1975, 76.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. It's just terrifying.
So Karen, getting back to, your story, did you come across other people who were actively trying to fight this, or was it kind of just accepted by everyone?
some of the research I did, there were a couple of books, nonfiction books that's really stood out. One is by Paul Lombardo and the other one is by Adam Cohen. And Paul Lombardo did a great job of laying out the history and the legal issues. Adam Cohen was the one who revealed, I believe, and my memory could be faulty, but that Carrie Buck was not in the least feeble-minded. They just needed somewhere to put her. She had a 6th grade education. She got high marks in school, and then she was removed from school by her foster parents because they wanted a servant. So there was nothing wrong with her brain. She loved to read, and she loved to read the newspaper and do the crossword puzzle. And there was also no mental issues with her daughter, who is called Annabelle in my book. And in real life, her name was Vivian. She died at the age of 8 from, I can't remember the disease, but it was, something like pneumonia or, something like that. But she also got high marks in school. So, and the sad thing there too is she was adopted as a baby by the same people who had taken in her mother, Carrie, and they just did a clean swap. And so I'm trying to remember the name. In my book, I call them the Dades. In real life, I can't recall their name, but they seem to have sort of raised her as their own, because they got her as a baby. I don't know where I'm going with this, but yeah, it's very strange times. So did anyone try to fight against this, go after the law? Well, I think Paul Lombardo and Adam Cohen have been, trying to point this out and fight this for years. Both are attorneys, both I believe are professors. And if they can do something about it, I hope that they do. And I sort of, I look at my role as a fiction author. I can, when you read a nonfiction account of this, it's emotional enough. I think what I felt the need to do was create a story where you can literally step into Carrie Buck's shoes and experience, what she experienced. And so, some people would rather read nonfiction, some people would rather read fiction, but either way, I think you get a sense of just the gross miscarriage of justice, that was done here. And I don't know, we like to think in this country that there is no caste system, that everyone is equal. But in this particular case, and in a lot of other ones, it's just clearly not true. These were, people who were very poor, didn't have a lot of education, didn't have a lot of opportunity, and there were a lot of sort of great brains at work deciding that they shouldn't reproduce more of the same, because it was going to be a drag and a cost to, decent so-called citizens. So
that was one of the points you made in the book, that it was more of a financial decision, or it was a lot of a financial decision. It's like, it's going to cost us, I can't remember what it was, 134,000 to,
yeah, I mean, they literally did. They figured out the cost of what it took to maintain, someone at a place like the Colony. But what they weren't taking into effect was the fact that those individuals worked. They worked hard. They worked for their food. They worked for, the roof over their heads. They probably gave more than they got, quite frankly. So I take issue with that. And I tried to make that clearer too, without, beating the reader over the head with it. But yeah, there was this attitude of, you're a drain on the state. Like, excuse me, how did you keep that 300-acre farm going? It wasn't with a magic wand. So.
Well, I would like to say that you did an amazing job with such a grim topic of adding the right amount of humor. And I think, was it Donna, you mentioned the romance, because that's what kept it hopeful, and stopped it from being a grim read, because it really wasn't. It was a lively read. It was sometimes funny, in that bittersweet way. So that was great.
Well, I have a pretty irreverent sense of humor, as people who get to know me realize.
Your personality is all over the pages. At least that, as I was reading it, that's what I thought. I'm like, this, if you didn't tell me who wrote this book, if I didn't know who wrote this book, I would know it was Karen Moser. I would know this, because your person, like your sarcasm, your wit, your cleverness, it was all over the pages in every part. So,
well, I know you guys had to have liked that cat fight.
So can I ask, do you all know each other personally?
So, well, yeah, some of it, we know each other. Well, I think everybody here except for maybe you, Trisha. And I'm so glad you came, because I enjoyed meeting you. And but yeah, some of us are. I'm sorry.
So thanks to Nina and Peyton.
Yeah, no, whom I love dearly. So I know some people. Some of us are writers. Some of us are in various groups together. Some of us know each other from past terrible jobs of our husbands. It's just great to see you all, and I'm just kind of floored that you guys are all here tonight, and I thank you.
Well, we thank you, because your book is wonderful.
A story that needs to be told.
Yeah. I'm telling you, this was the strangest writing experience I've ever had. Dorian knows that I have a flying pig story inside of me that's still trying to come out. But this one, it refused to be moved to any back burner. It refused. In fact, we got a contract for 3 other books in the middle of me writing this, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Because I loved writing those books too, but it's so funny how the publishing cookie crumbles sometimes, because then all of a sudden I was juggling all of them, and I was like, but wait, what about my flying pig? And it's just kind of how it goes. But most writers are crazy, and I claim what do you call it? Authorial insanity, whatever you want to call it. But we have prizes to give away actually, and I have no idea how to do this. So maybe Joanne, you could sort of close your eyes and point to names on a list. But, but we have two $25 gift certificates to Murder on the Beach. And yes, they do ship. So, you find any book you want and they will send it to you. And then we're giving away 2 sets of the Liza Kendall books, which I co-author with a friend of mine. So we are Liza Kendall. I'm Kendall and she's Liza. And so I wanted to give away 2 sets of those 3 books, and I will mail them to you. So, and I'm happy to take any other questions or anything you want to
I have
know
a question.
Writing process.
I have a question. I want to know if you would show this to Carrie, because how old is she now? Would you send her
If I
a
would show
copy?
this to Carrie Buck?
Yeah, would you send her a copy?
I would if she were still living. But
oh, okay. The way you were talking, I thought she was alive.
No, I can still hear her voice. It's just great. It's crazy. And I'm not that woo-woo, but this was definitely there were a number of woo-woo moments with
Love it. You just have to go with it. Woo-woo's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Synchronicity, what do you call it? Call it whatever it is. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, a good book like this is the best way for these topics and issues to go mainstream.
Yep.
And really make a difference and overturn the law. So I think it was wonderful.
I actually hope that happens. That was in the back of my mind, and I actually think I have a line in there that says, when there was the famous Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. quote when he was, I don't know what you call it, the writ of decision. And he said 3 generations of imbeciles is enough. And so I think I say somewhere in there, 3 generations of this imbecilic law are enough. When will Buck versus Bell be overturned? Because
I devoured your author notes. Like, normally I'm not really big on author notes, but I was so intrigued by the story and the characters, and I didn't want it to be over. And so I thought you just really delivered the right amount of information.
I agree with Tracy because I think you did, and that's another. They were so beautifully written. I mean, you don't expect author notes or historical notes to be beautifully written, but they were perfect, and they really explained a lot and helped. I think a lot of readers, when they finish your book, are going to have a lot of questions, and I think you answered them in your author notes. So I think that was great.
Thank you.
Karen, are you or your agent pursuing a film or TV producer to adapt this book?
We he did submit it to one company, and they just didn't connect with it. So I assume he is moving on and he'll submit it elsewhere. But that's that's pretty competitive.
Yeah, but still,
publishing
what happens, more books are being made into films and TV shows than independent scripts. So
I would love for that to happen. I will tell you guys that there was a 1994 movie about this topic made, but it took a distant point of view, and it was still going on the premise that Carrie Buck was feeble-minded. They did a great job with the movie, and Marlee Matlin played the character of Carrie. But it's important to me that that the story is told, with the truth that there was nothing mentally
There was
wrong with
no reason.
Yeah. And, that to me is one of the most tragic things. So that, yeah, there's another project in the works that's called Unfit, and it's supposedly a courtroom drama, and it's going to star and I think be directed by Dakota Fanning. Is it Dakota Fanning? No, I'm that's not the correct name. 50 Shades of Grey girl.
Yeah.
Oh,
Dakota Fanning?
it's not Dakota Fanning. It's
Dakota Johnson.
Johnson. I knew it was a Dakota. So yeah. And that announcement came out, I think, in 2017. I haven't heard anything recently, but again, it's kind of a question of what angle you take on this story, because there are, the movie that they did was Against Her Will was really well done, and I'm sure they'll do a great job with Unfit. This again is a whole different collection of fictional characters and a different take on it. So who knows? I would love
to
it.
hear no Reese Witherspoon that can send her a book.
Yeah, I hope they send it all over the place. Yeah. So, but I mean, for something that I stumbled across accidentally, and that was really a gift kind of from a friend, which I'm eternally grateful for. I can't explain how strange the whole process was. But I'm very glad, that the friend did give me the idea, and that I had such a, visceral, almost crazy reaction to it, like nothing was going to stop me from writing this book. So
good for you.
So Joanne, do you have a good way to do a?
I have written everybody's name on one of these sheets of paper, and I'm going to put it in the basket.
Okay.
Drum roll.
So what are we drawing for?
All right.
So are we doing the gift certificates first, or
what are you doing?
Up
to you.
Let's give away a set of the books first, and then a gift certificate, and then books, and then gift certificate.
All right. Are you going to write
and
this
if you
down?
already have the books, then just I guess give them to a friend, or say put your name back in the hat. I don't know.
Or you can exchange them here.
Oh,
something else.
Good point.
Or you can give them to somebody who hasn't read them and tell them they should write a review.
That's a better idea.
How about that?
That's a better idea.
Yes.
Perfect. How many people do you know that actually write reviews? It's so hard to write reviews. And
what do they say? The average is 1 out of every 200 readers actually writes a review.
Wow.
It's insane. It's so hard.
Yeah.
And then readers like us who actually would write a review can't, because we're associated on Amazon and we're authors. And so
yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah, it's
but
tricky.
You can write a review, and they can turn it. If an author writes a review, they can turn it into an editorial review. You can turn it into an editorial review on Amazon, so that it may not show under the regular part, but it shows up in your editorial section.
Well,
I was just
anyone.
gonna say real quick, we can also write reviews on BookBub and Goodreads. So
that's right.
You can do that.
And if anybody wants to send me a review of Karen's book, I will be happy to put it in my newsletter that goes to 3,000 people.
Oh, Joanne.
Thank you.
Yeah, done.
That would be really helpful.
Except the deadline, you have to get it to me by Sunday because it's February 1st. The newsletter is going out.
If it doesn't have to be very long, I've got one I can send you.
No, it doesn't have to be long.
And just email it to me,
Can you give
that
us
would
your
be-
email? Because I'll send you mine.
Murder, MB, like Miami Beach, at gate.net.
Gate, G-A-T-E?
G-A-T-E.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
25 years ago when I first got email, there was a small company in Florida called Cybergate. And that was the G-A-T-E suffix. And then they were bought by Earthlink.
Okay. Yeah, reviews are very welcome, guys. Really.
Well, anybody who sends it to me, I'm happy to put it in the newsletter. Okay, so what are we giving away? What am I picking for?
We're gonna give away 3 books by Liza Kendall.
Okay,
Half of my alter ego.
so let me mix it up. Nicole.
Nicole?
Nicole. Nicole.
I think you've already got them, but
Yay, I think I'm missing one, so perfect.
okay.
And I'll pass them on and ask for reviews.
Okay. I know where you live, so I can bring them to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and next is the gift certificate.
Yep, one of the gift certificates.
All right, Lisa.
Woohoo! All right. Okay. So I guess we'll do another set of books, and then the last gift certificate.
Another set of books is Kathy Mack.
Kathy Mack. All right.
Yay.
Thank you. I read one of them, but I'll gladly take them.
Okay, and then the last one is the other gift certificate.
Yeah.
Tracy.
All right.
I love to shop at Murder on the Beach.
All right.
All right.
I think I'm gonna come by tomorrow.
Well, I will get you.
Well, we're headed up that way tomorrow.
Great.
You're actually shopping in person? I'm jealous.
We will be masked.
Oh, I know. I've got my mask for Murder
We
on the
won't
Beach.
touch too much. Thank you. Thank you, Karen and Joanne.
We're getting quite a few customers in person now.
Good.
You're getting more customers now?
Yeah, in person. Yeah. I mean, before
Yeah.
they were all, just email or whatever. But now we're getting quite a few in person.
People are tired. People want to
People are really ready to get out of their houses.
Yeah.
I mean, even crazy introverts like authors are going nuts.
Right. Just want to go to lunch.
Yeah.
I want to see everybody in person and be like,
I know. I want to hug people, and you can't do that. And it's like,
I'm a hugger. I want to be able to hug people.
I have learned to be a hugger. Yeah, I wasn't always a hugger, but I've learned to be a hugger.
Now the hugging is just an awkward pause, like we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was weird when I first moved here from Connecticut. Yankees like their space, and you don't rush up and smooch people in the face. And so when I first moved down to South Florida, I was like, "What are you doing? You're trying to kiss me! Get away from me!" It's just really
Same
strange.
thing with me from Ohio and then moving to Florida.
Yeah, it was really odd. And now I love it, but I'll try to do that to somebody in New York, and they're like, "What are you doing? Get away from me!"
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, thank you guys all so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Congratulations,
all.
Karen and Joanne.
Thank
I'm
you
looking
all.
forward to getting my book from Joanne and reading it even more now.
Yes.
So good. So good.
Joanne, thank you for hosting.
Thank you.
For having us, Joanne.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for the invite, Karen.
So good night.
Congratulations.
You guys have a great weekend.
Everyone.
Thanks
Good to
again.
see you all.
Congratulations.
Good night.
Love you too, Trisha, even though we're